the first unit of this paper, nature and scope of the study of international relations. So in this lesson, we are going to discuss about the nature, the definitions of international relations, and also overall scope of international relations and major areas which are covered in this international relations. We are going to uh, discuss about the topics. So, uh, as we said, there is no specific definition for international relations, but experts have defined it on their own perspectives. So there is also a problem with the definition of international relations. So many times international relations are considered as global politics or international politics. So these international relations is a separate curriculum, as we said in earlier. So, according to our political thinker Hans J. Marganto, in his book named Politics Among Nations, he said that international politics includes analysis of political relations and problems of peace among states. So, according to him, these international relations discusses about relations between nations and peace treaties between nations, and also some resolution for problems between the nations. If we say every nation has its boundary problems and other bilateral relations and conflict problems are there. So that's what many international organizations like United Nations organization is solely stands for the resolution for the conflict zones between the nations. So according to Marganto, it is struggle for and use of power among nations. He clearly says that international relations are clearly about power politics. So every nation wants to become superpower in the world at present times. So if we see at present time, United States of America is acting as single superpower in the world. So before the end of Cold War or disintegration of United Soviet Russia, there are two superpowers in the world. So after disintegration of USSR, so USA become as single superpower. So if we see other thinkers' definitions about these international relations, according to Palmer and Perkins, the most important theorists in this international relations area. So they says that international relations discusses the forces, pressures, and processes that control the nature of human life, and also activities between nations and thought in all human and group relations in the world community. So, according to Palmer and Perkins, the discussion in international relations involves both political and non-political issues. So, they defined international relations in this way. Uh, Clearly says like international relations is the objective and systematic study of international life in all its aspects. So many scholars defines international relations differently. Um Here I have mentioned most important definitions of international relations. So one is Hans J. Marganto, and another one is Palmer and Perkins. And also there is one more thinker is there. He says that his name is Quincy Wright. According to him, international relations includes uh, relations between many entities of uncertain sovereignties. So that it is not only the nations which international relations seek to relate, varied type of groups, states, nations, government, people, regions, alliances, confederations, international organizations, even industrial organizations, cultural organizations, religious organizations, and also non-governmental organizations must be dealt with the study of international relations. So if the treatment is to be realistic, so this is the definitions of international relations. If we see, as per these uh, thinkers, they stated that international relations clearly about the relations uh, in in between nations in the areas of political, socio-cultural, and economic, and also there is cooperation between many bilateral relations too. So finally, the international relations international relations is a separate curriculum from our subject. So it's about it's have um, separate scope and separate study according to many political thinkers. So if we see the nature of international relations, uh, the nature of international relations is dynamic, because international relations is a thorough analysis. Just a second. So uh, actually, we have to know when the international relations started scientifically or in modern times. If you see, first of all, we say Westphalian Treaty of 1648 is the founding milestone of these international relations. So at that time, Emperor of Roman declared official religion in their um, area. So at that time, many agitations and many revolutions, uh, many protests happened there, and later then they have uh, separated into modern state system from emperor system. So that's the first step in the international relations. So later many states become independent nations, independent sovereignties. Like if we see, many revolutions happened in the past. If we say the famous revolutions, one is French revolutions, which is happened in 1789, and in American independence movement also there 1776, and later Russian revolution 1917, even Indian independence movement 1947, and China independence in 1950. So these all are the part of international relations in making the self dependent, and also they become as sovereign nations. So even after both World War One and both Second World War also, later become many states become independent, and they got independence from them colonial rulers, and also they created their own constitutions according their needs. So even after the establishment of United Nations organization also, many revolutions are happening towards for their freedom and their opportunities in the global political areas. So, post World War II period saw a huge shift in world politics, because world politics was divided into two poles, such as NATO led by the USA and Warsaw Pact led by USSR. So the collapse of Soviet Union in the 1990s led to a kind of single polarity in world politics, as we discussed. So, however, economically growing Asian countries such as China, India, Singapore, Vietnam, and various South American countries such as Brazil are also significantly influencing world politics. So, the international relations as an academic discipline discusses the changing pattern of the contemporary world. So, if we see as an interdisciplinary subject, all social science subjects are interdisciplinary in nature. International relations also is an interdisciplinary field of study in which other disciplines in social science, such as history, economics, political science, philosophy, geography, culture, etc., are interconnected. So, in international relations, the state is the primary actor. So, in the field of international politics, state is the sole and unitary actor. So, the state has always been a major player in international relations. So, the state's behavior as a major driving force in international politics is also studied in international relations. And also, national interest and power are the core of international relations. So, the main goal of the state is national interest. With this goal in mind, the state engages in relations with other states, and the national power of the state will be able to satisfy national interests. So if we see, we are having relations with all the nations across the world. If we see, we are fought in wars between India, means India fought between Bangladesh, Pakistan, and China. In three times we are in war zone. So even we treated as friendly neighbors. So after we participated in the war between these neighbors. So in international politics, according to the international laws made by the United Nations organization, every nation has to stand for the peace. So there is no place for the war. If conflicts raised by the neighbors or any nations, they have to come forward to discuss and debate to resolve the conflicts between the nations. So that's what United Nations organization is stand for, the protection of uh, international peace and security. So here the national interest of the state is the core element in the international relations. So as we said, according to Morgenthau, international politics are struggle for power. So always he says international relations or international politics is the struggle for power. I have already said the power is the means of national interest. So, if it is seen that the issues of national interest and the role of national power in fulfilling those interests considered as the core of international relations. So, it means national interest is the core of international relations. So the power politics is the key theme of international relations. So simply say, in simply words, the key theme of international relations is power politics. So, and also it has continuous interaction among nation states. So no state is in the present world is self-sufficient. As we said, every nation is dependent on each other. Hence, the need for interconnectedness, and that is possible only because of the interaction among different states, because every nation directly or indirectly depending with other nations. So here international relations also discuss the foreign policies of different states and how they behave each other. So every nation, after they become independent and sovereign, they have prepared their own foreign policies to maintain peaceful and beneficial relations between other nations. And also international uses, these international relations uses analytical and empirical method as well as for the theory building too. For example, several theories are there in international relations, such as idealism, neoliberalism is the result of analytical study, and realism and neo-realism are the result of an empirical study. If we see the scope of international relations, as we said, the international community is the instrument of international relations. So the unimaginable changes in the international community over the past 70 years have drastically changed interstate relations. So if we see international relations as a distinct curriculum has followed the trend in international society. So in the discussion of international relations nature, um, the scope of international is important to know the status of international relations. So majorly international relations is study of uh, the behavior of states in the international political system. So just as when a nation builds good relations, so the study of behavior of states in international political system is the main scope of international relations. So just when there is a conflict of interest, bitterness develops among itself, that too becomes part of international relations. So in the subject of international relations consist of both cooperation and conflict. As we said, every nation has its own problems, and if you see, we are facing boundary disputes between Pakistan, China, even Bangladesh, and also Nepal. So, if you see in daily newspapers, we are watching that Pakistan soldiers um, uh, entered in our boundaries. So, there is some sorts of encounters. So, every day we are in news regarding these boundary disputes. So if United Nations organization uh, plays a crucial role in this resolution of conflicts, the boundary disputes will be closed forever. But there is a lack of willingness to resolve these boundary disputes between many nations. So the problems, conflicts are being forever like that only. So the role of non-state actors in the international field also important in the scope of international relations. As we said, there are many non-state actors whose activities affect international relations. If we see multinational corporations and many international non-state actors like European Economic Community, Council of Mutual Economic Assistance, NATO, CETO, Warsaw Pact, Asian Organization of American States, different terrorist organization, different religious organizations are the examples of non-state elements in the international relations. So these non-state actors like regional organizations also plays an important role in international political system. If we see today international relations are not free from discussion of the determination to save mankind from war. So the question of war and peace is important in international relations. So the main purpose of establishing the United Nations to ensure world peace and security. So, large and regional powers are often exchanging views to create an atmosphere of peace and security. And also, all kinds of contacts. So, all kinds of contacts and also welfare of various exchanges and globalization process in cultural and other fields are gradually increasing. So all this has become the subject of international relations. And also uh, in this area we are studying about foreign policies of different states. The another important issue in international relations is foreign policy. So in the past, kings or prime ministers or few individuals played an active role in determining the foreign policy. So today, after uh, two world wars, many nations, many states become independent and sovereign. So not only statesmen but also the legislature and many citizens are involved in the formulation of foreign policy. So the state of affairs are ideology in foreign policy, and the ideological issues of the respective regimes are important parts of international relations. So in this area we are able to study the foreign policies of many countries in the world. And also the study of nation states also part of the scope of international relations. So the ethnic composition, geographical location, historical background, religion, or ideologies of different states are not the same at all. So, and because of all these differences, the relationship between different states is different. So international relations need to discuss all these differences as well. So, in detail, when the social environment is different, his reaction falls on international relations. And also, in this area, we are going to discuss about many international organizations. So, as we said, the role of national and international organizations in international relations is no less important. People from different countries are involved with the United States Congress of Industrial Organizations, the US Federation of Labor, the French Labor Organization, and the Women International Democratic Federation Engagement Organization. And also the non-governmental organizations are involved in the activities of coalition and its various expert organizations such as UNESCO, the International Labour Organization, and World Health Organization. Therefore, international relations are discusses all national and international organizations, and also it discusses about global environmental issues too. So, issues of the environment are one of the key matters of international relations now. During the 1970s, the environmental policies only focused on the question of resource issues. But from the 1990s, environmental politics focused on the issue of climate change. Climate change brought about through global warming. So, to overcome this issue, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Kyoto Protocol in 1997, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, etc., have initiated for this purpose. So, global environmental issues affect state in the world. So, for the protection of this beautiful world, all the states are trying their best by reduction of the usage of greenhouse gases, and that is why it is considered as the most important part in the international relations. So this is the one of the major area in the international relations. And also role of the people in international politics also important in this area. So the important of public and public opinion in the international arena is also expanding rapidly. So the end of imperialism from international disarmament, political and economic, has inspired movements and protests by the people of different countries. US scientists, intellectuals, people from different societies have demonstrated against the Vietnam War. So, what do people think about international situation, and their views also come under international relations. So, the role of the third world also important in this international relations. So the third emergence, third world means after uh, Second World War, those who are getting independence from their colonies become as third world nations. So the third emergence in recent world politics has brought about qualitative change. Most people in the world are third generation. So the growing role of non-aligned countries in building new international systems, easing tensions between East and West, disarmament, ending colonial rule, etc., is more significant in this international relations. Therefore, the role of the third world in world politics is also the relevant point of discussion in international relations. So, the scope of international relations is becoming wider as it discusses various issues of dynamic nature, and also all the domestic policies that affect are likely to affect other countries too are now being covered by international relations. So international relations currently discuss various decision making process, and also in the past these issues were not related to international relations. Therefore it can be said that the scope of international relations has expanded, and also the importance or purpose of the study of international relations have to know, because international relations have become an essential part of social science in every country. So every country establishing separate schools. Schools mean separate institutions for the purpose of study of international relations. So many centers, many research centers also establishing in many countries. So the importance of international relations is growing not only as a subject included in the political science curriculum, but also a separate academic discipline. Even many universities have linked it to the history curriculum at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Reasonably, the question arises, what is the reason for this growing importance of international relations? And what is the usefulness and purpose of international relations lessons? And why study international relations? So, one thing will become clear if we look at the curriculum, our current world map, and analyze the real situation. Each country has become incomprehensible in the international interdependence. So, it is not possible to solve the problems of a country in isolation or to meet the growing needs of different kinds. So, in order to meet its own economic, cultural, and other needs, each state has to voluntarily enter into bilateral or multilateral agreements with other states. So, bilateral means agreements between only two states. Bi means two. Multilateral means agreements between two or more states, not exactly two, more states. So instead of extreme self-reliance, therefore, an environment of interdependence and cooperation has developed. If you see many MOUs, memorandum of understandings or agreements are going forward to maintain bilateral or multilateral relationship with other nations. Every state is example for this. If you see our prime minister or president visits, so for example some country, we will see in the news that some of MOUs or agreements between us, and changing files between their hands. So that is these bilateral or multilateral agreements. So there is currently no doubt about usefulness of the international relations lesson. From a broadly constructive perspective, we can gain knowledge about how international relations will work, what issues need to be eliminated, are accepted and considered, and how friendship can be established between different states. So, international relations make people aware of important issues such as war and peace, mutual security, disarmament, international law and trade, peaceful resolution of interstate disputes, imperialism, colonialism, and national liberation movement, etc. So, the history of international relations has given each country a wealth of experience in formulating and implementing its foreign policy. So, just as international relations have inspired people towards the possibility of international society, so too it has presented the nature of disunity among different nations. So international relations cannot be analyzed by mere sentimentality. So differences in the socio-economic structure of different countries are bound to affect their national and international policy. So establishing the usefulness of international relations on a broad basis requires, on the one hand, and an objective review of real events, and on the other hand, one needs to be proactive in building a proper analytical approach and theoretical basis. So the vast potential that the advancement of advancement of uh, the science and technology has created in other branches of sociology needs to be applied in international relations as well. So if we see, the scope of international relations is the complex relations existing among the sovereign states of the world. So this is the nature and scope of international relations. So, and also for many years after, uh, in this 21st century, international relations become a separate academic discipline. It has separate curriculum and degree schemes and separate areas creating. However, this separation is artificial and it has close linkage with political science, history, economics, law, geography, etc. As a field of study, international relations has uncertain boundaries. Its scope is not merely political. Today, economic activities such as international trade, role of multinational corporations, uh, terrorist activities, global poverty, migration, many more issues are included within its scope. So, traditionally, states have been the actors of international relations. They are known as state actors. In recent times, several new actors have emerged in international relations, as we discussed, non-state actors like many regional organizations, NGOs, and MNCs also exclusively among these non-state actors. So if you see, international relations is a wide-ranging and complex subject. Its subject matter is complex and multidisciplinary. It attempts to manage the deeply complex nature of uh, world politics, and also it is difficult for a student of international relations to understand each and every issue of world politics. That is why international relations specialists, um, in in fact, a specialist in the subfield of international relations, they may be expert in theory, security studies, international political economy, foreign policy studies, international history, and international law. So, in the 1950s and 60s, international relations as a discipline was dominated by American scholars. Their influence declined in latter years, yet their contribution to the growth of the discipline has been outstanding. If you see, the discipline of international relations is often characterized in terms of series of great debates. So these debates have considerably enriched the literature of international relations, and also these great debates are really about what the study of international relations should be. We may refer to these great debates, the realism versus idealism in 1930s, traditionalism versus behavioralism in 1960s, neorealism versus neoliberalism in the 1980s, and nationalism versus reflectivism in 1990s. So the list of great debates goes on in these international relations. If we see, as we discussed, the scope of international broadly includes the major areas like nation states and their relations, non-state actors, power politics, war and peace, foreign policies of major powers. As we said, international relations is a study of foreign policies of major powers such as United States of America, China, Russia, Japan, and India. These powers are major actors in the world politics. And also, as we said, ideologies. So, since the World War One, may interstate conflicts had ideological implications which complicated the nature of international relations. So, ideologies thus become an important determinant of national policies. So, uh, international political economy also is a key area of international studies. It is the study of international relations with the help of economic activities and analysis. Along with political and security issues, the study of international relations is frequently analyzed today with the help of economic views. Many scholars, such as Susan Strange, States and Markets, present the discipline of international relations as the study of relationship between the state and market. And also there are other key issues also there in international relations. If you see, international relations is the study of key issues such as international terrorism, environment, pollution, global poverty, migration, diplomacy, international law, and organizations, and so on since 1980s. Globalization has become significant in the study of international relations. Justin Rosenberg, the British professor of international relations, pointed out in 2000 that uh, we live today in the age of globalization studies. If we see the significance of study of international relations, it is essential to know that some of the reasons why study of international relations is significant. If you see, international relations is intimately connected with our everyday life. It is wrong to take international relations as a subject of interest for governments and leaders only. The fact is that our everyday life is very much influenced by decisions taken by in the international sphere. Its study helps us understand global affairs that influence domestic politics. If you see, our everyday life is influenced by these decisions. Like if you see, the price increase of fuels or gold or other domestic or non-domestic will impact our daily life. So, international relations are influencing everyone directly or indirectly. So global problems cannot be solved without coordination among states. So uh, that's what issues such as even climate change or global trade can be tackled only by the states. Hence, the study of international relations is very much needed to protect our global environment. So, even international relations enables us to understand the foreign policies of states. For instance, in the Indian context, international relations literature helps us understand why India adopted the policy of non-alignment and whether it benefited from this foreign policy. We will discuss about non-alignment in next classes. The discipline of international relations helps better appreciate the role of international laws and institutions in influencing national, economic, social, cultural policies. It also enables us to know how and in what influence domestic policies. International laws and institutions originate, and international relations scholars attempt to find out the causes of war and the conditions under which is durable international peace may be possible. So thus a study of international relations is necessary for understanding conditions of war and peace. So the discipline of international relations analyzes movements for democratization such as Arab Spring, and also discusses global social movements and new modes of resistance used by ordinary citizens against environment pollution, globalization, and the like. So finally, international relations uh, discusses about makes aware of global events that influence our everyday life. So it is not proper to define international relations as a study of high politics only, for it also explains issues of global politics. So the study of relations among nations has fascinated scholars for several centuries. So that's what international relations is important in present day life. So if you see uh, the first chair of international relations established in at the University of Wales, Britain, UK in 1919. So the first two occupants of the chair were eminent historians, uh, Professors Alfred Zimmermann and C.K. Webster. At the time, international relations as a subject was little more than diplomatic history. So the term international politics is now used for the new discipline that has been emerging since the Second World War. So it is more scientific yet narrow as compared to international relations. So the if you see the changing nature of international relations, so the context and the nature of IR have undergone major changes after the Second World War. Traditionally, world politics was centered on Europe, and relations among nations were largely conducted by officials of foreign offices in secrecy. So today public opinion has begun to play an important role in the decision making process in foreign offices, thus changing completely the nature of international relations. So, foreign ambassadors, once briefed by their governments, were largely free to conduct relations according to the ground realities of the countries of their posting. So today, not only have nuclear weapons changed the nature of war and replaced erstwhile the balance of power by the balance of terror, but also the nature of diplomacy changed as well. So uh, the international relations closely related to several disciplines as we discussed. So, during the second half of the 20th century, revolution in the means of travel and communication has only changed the nature of international relations, but made its study is essential for every enlightened person. So, we are today living in an interdependent state system. So it is essential for all of us to have a clear idea of what is happening in the world. So political incidents or events are important, but even economic developments, trade, commerce, and activities of actors like MNCs are no less significant. So we live in an age of growing international cooperation. So therefore, not only do the activities of the United Nations and its numerous agencies affect all the nations and their people. So, but regional organizations like European Union, SAARC, ASEAN, and Organization of African Unity also play important roles in our lives. So, international terrorism has become a concern for the humankind, and economic institutions like the World Bank, IBRD, or the World Trade Organization, WTO affect international relations too. So the study of international relations has therefore become highly useful and enlightening for students and others like. So as we discussed, the scope of international relations is um, very vast indeed. The world was virtually become a global village as interdependence of states has increased many fold. So economic relations between states, the role of international institutions like World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization today influences economic activity all over the world. So the United Nations uh, and its various agencies are engaged in numerous socio-economic and political activities. So, international terrorism is a cause of serious concern for the human existence. So, multinational corporations who are giant companies operating the world over are important non-state actors in the area of international relations. So, thus, the scope of international relations has become vast, and besides international politics, it embraces various other interstate activities as well. So, uh, uh, the study of international relations is essential for every one in the present world. So, diplomatic history also important for to know the history of these emerging nations. So, this is the introduction, meaning, nature, and scope of international relations. So, this is the first unit about today's class. Is there any doubts or clarifications regarding our first chapter? You may ask. Okay. Today, same time, you must join and tell your friends to join the class. So we have scheduled only 6 classes for online. In these 6 classes, we are going to at least to manage or to understand our subject, and we are going to discuss how to write your last semester exams as well. So make sure that to attend all the classes. So if if you have any doubts, you feel free to ask. Okay. Thank you for your participation. I am concluding the session. If you have other class, please join there. We will meet tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Thank you for your participation. Thank you all. I'm concluding the session.